The wind howled like a wounded animal clawing at the edges of the small wooden cabin, nestled deep in the Oregon Cascades. Snow hurled itself sideways, slamming into the single-pane windows with a rhythmic rattle like distant gunfire. Inside, the last ember in the fireplace hissed and died with a sigh, casting the room into a cold, gray stillness. Ryan Mercer sat at the scarred kitchen table, unmoving, his hands clenched into fists on either side of a crumpled foreclosure notice. The paper looked obscene against the worn wood, too clean, too official. Final notice, it said in bold black letters. Immediate eviction. No more extensions. No more grace. 7 years. 7 years since the sand and blood of Afghanistan had sunk into his boots and never fully washed out. 7 years since that last mission, the one that took Eli. The one that broke everything. Now even this, the cabin, the wilderness, the silence would be taken. The last place he had to disappear into was being stripped away by bureaucracy. Outside, the blizzard roared like judgment. Inside, Ryan's world was quieter. Too quiet. He got up slowly, joints stiff from cold and regret. The cabin creaked as he moved. He poured the last of the bourbon into a chipped mug. It wasn't enough to warm anything, but it burned going down, and that counted for something. He looked toward the door and thought about ending it. He'd been thinking about it more lately. Not in some melodramatic way, he didn't believe in grand exits. But out there in the white, it would be easy. Step into the storm, lay down close his eyes. Let the snow erase everything. No noise, no pain, no ghosts. He was reaching for his coat when the scratching started. At first it was faint. Just a soft scrape against the door. Could have been a branch. Could have been the wind. Then it came again, slower, deliberate. Scratch, pause, scratch. Then a low whining sound. Hurt. Not animal fear, something more controlled, measured. Ryan froze. Every instinct, every inch of muscle memory from a life spent on edge kicked awake. He moved to the door like a soldier entering a hostile compound, slow and quiet. He unlatched it. The wind screamed through the opening, slamming snow and ice into his face. For a moment, he saw nothing but white. Then he looked down. A German shepherd lay collapsed in the snow, barely conscious. Its thick coat was caked in frost, and one front paw was curled off the ground, injured. But what stopped Ryan cold were the dog's eyes. Amber. Locked on his. They weren't wild or begging. They were focused. Calm. Watching him with the sharp attention of something that recognized him. And something else. Recognition. Shock flared like a flare gun in his chest. That knot on the dog's collar, he knew it. Paracord. King Cobra weave. Army Ranger signature. They used to tie them during downtime. His fingers moved before thought caught up, brushing snow off the collar, tracing the weave. His voice cracked open, dry from silence. No way. The dog was real. The collar was real. The knot, Eli's signature knot. Tight on one end, a little uneven on the other, just like he used to do. And Eli had been dead for 7 years. Ryan didn't think. He reached down, scooped the heavy animal into his arms. The dog groaned but didn't resist. He slammed the door shut behind them, laying the shepherd on a faded wool blanket near the fireplace. No fire, no heat. Damn it. He worked fast the way he used to in combat. He dried the dog, checked for wounds, a sprain, not a break. Cold exposure, dehydration. He heated snow on the stove for water-shredded jerky into bite-sized chunks. The dog accepted it all with silent trust. When it was done eating, it settled again, amber eyes never leaving Ryan's face. Outside, the storm howled, but inside, there was something else. A weight, not fear, not comfort. Something in between. "You're not a stray," Ryan muttered. The dog blinked. "You don't just show up in a blizzard unless you're chasing ghosts, or dragging them." Kaiser, that name slipped into his mind uninvited. Eli's dog. He'd talked about him constantly. Said if anything ever happened, Kaiser would know what to do. That was a joke. A half-assed comment over campfire stew. But the dog was here. Ryan stood slowly, staring down at the dog Kaiser as the storm rattled the windows harder. A part of him, the part he thought was long dead, stirred. Felt the edge of something forming. Purpose. Then the dog stood. Limping, yes, but upright. He walked to the door, looked back at Ryan. Waited. "Are you serious?" Ryan whispered. Kaiser whined once. Ryan looked at the foreclosure notice on the table. He picked it up, crumpled it in one fist, and tossed it into the cold fireplace. Watched it curl into blackened ash. Then he grabbed his coat, his boots, his pack, the one he hadn't touched in years. He walked to the door. The wind slammed against it like a warning. He opened it anyway. The cold hit like a freight train. Kaiser stepped out into it without hesitation, head down, forging through the snow like a soldier on mission. Ryan followed. He didn't know where they were going. But ghosts didn't just appear for no reason. The snow was a living thing now, lashing at Ryan Mercer's face, piling on his shoulders, hissing through the trees like it wanted to bury the world. Visibility dropped to 10 feet. The path had vanished completely. But Kaiser, the battered German shepherd, kept moving with laser focus, limping slightly, but never faltering. Ryan followed in silence, boots crunching over snow and ice. Every muscle in his body screamed from the cold, but his mind was working harder, pulling memories out of the dark corners. 7 years since Eli died. 7 years since anyone had spoken his name aloud. And now his dog had shown up in the middle of a whiteout, wearing his old unit's knot pattern on his collar and leading Ryan through hostile terrain like he'd been given a mission. None of it made sense, but Ryan didn't stop. "You don't just show up in a blizzard," he muttered, echoing his earlier words, "unless someone sent you." Kaiser paused for a moment and looked back, ears twitching, as if acknowledging the thought. Then he pressed forward, leading Ryan up a narrow incline that disappeared into the tree line. Branches clawed at them like fingers. The terrain grew steeper. Jagged rock protruded from under the snow. Ryan felt his thighs burn, his lungs working overtime. He'd let himself go too long in that cabin, wrapped in guilt, waiting to vanish. Now he was chasing a ghost. And the ghost had a plan. They came to a ridge. The trees opened just enough for the wind to come tearing through, stinging Ryan's face. Beyond that, all he could see was a sheer drop, and beyond that, nothing. Just miles of blank snowfield and mountains dissolving into fog. Kaiser stopped and stood facing the cliff. Ryan caught up, panting hard. "You brought me here to die, because I could have done that back at the cabin without the cardio." Kaiser ignored him. Instead, the dog limped forward right up to the vertical rock wall and began sniffing along the base. Ryan frowned. "What are you?" Then he saw it. A smooth panel of rock shaped just unnaturally enough to stand out if you knew what to look for. It wasn't part of the natural formation. It had edges, structure. Kaiser planted his paw directly in the center of it. Nothing happened. Then a soft hiss. A sound Ryan hadn't heard since Afghanistan hydraulic pressure. The wall split at the seams. Snow and ice tumbled off, as two massive slabs of stone began to separate slowly, revealing a steel bulkhead embedded deep into the mountain. Ryan staggered back, stunned. "Dead men don't build bunkers," he whispered. "So why the hell does this feel like Eli just called me and Kaiser stood waiting?" The steel door creaked as it opened into darkness. A single red light blinked from a panel inside. Warm air filtered and dry gusted outward. Ryan stepped forward slowly, cautiously. The air smelled like electronics oil metal sterile. Military. A concrete corridor stretched inward, clean and sharp, lined with soft floor lighting. The walls had small notches, defensive slots. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a fortress. He turned back to Kaiser, who was now sitting just inside the threshold, tail brushing lightly against the floor. "Okay," Eli Ryan said aloud. "Let's see what the hell you left behind." He stepped inside. The door began to close behind him with a slow, mechanical growl. For a brief second, he panicked, feeling the finality of it, the tomb-like silence. But then the overhead lights flickered on, bathing the corridor in cold white. Kaiser trotted past him and took the lead again. The hallway turned left, then descended through a staircase carved into the mountain itself. As they moved, Ryan noticed subtle signs, motion sensors, mounted cameras, reinforced doors. Whoever built this had clearance and funding. And paranoia. They reached the main room. It opened into a vast command center, darkened screens lining the walls, a large table in the center with built-in projectors, and a personal living space off to the side. Ryan walked in slowly, eyes wide. Dust barely coated the surfaces. This place was self-sustaining, still running, like it had been expecting someone. A soft beep echoed across the room. Ryan spun toward the sound. One of the screens flickered to life. Static. Then a video feed. And then Eli. Alive in pixels. Wearing the same flannel jacket he used to sleep in on base. Eyes dark, serious, but somehow calm. Like this had all been calculated. "Hey man," the recording said. "If you're seeing this, then I'm dead. And if you're here, that means Kaiser did his job." Ryan couldn't move. Could barely breathe. "You've probably got questions." "Fair. I don't have all the answers, but I left what I could. What I found. Apex, they weren't just selling info. They were turning operations. Our own guys. I found names, patterns, and I got too close." Eli looked down briefly, then back up. "You were always the one I trusted to finish what I couldn't. And you'll hate this part, but yeah, this place is yours now." The video cut. Another screen blinked on, displaying encrypted files folders with names like Valhalla Turncoats and Operation Sleepwalk. Ryan staggered backward and sat hard on a nearby bench. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he stood, moved toward the console, and began to work. His fingers hovered over the keys. Somewhere deep inside the bunker, a hum rose, servers powering up. A camera panned toward him, tracking movement. From the hallway, Kaiser walked back into the room and laid down, head resting on his paws, watching Ryan with quiet certainty. "This is insane," Ryan muttered. "You're insane, Eli." "But you always were." He cracked his neck, rolled his shoulders, and started accessing the files. The encryption was military grade, but Eli had left a backdoor voice authentication facial scan. Ryan passed both. The screen loaded the Valhalla file. "Access requires external uplink. Satellite relay initiating." Suddenly, a red light blinked on the control panel. Ryan tensed. The screen displayed remote connection request detected. Origin Apex Solutions. Tier 1 access. Shit. He hit the kill switch. Too late. They knew. Back outside, a satellite whirred silently in orbit, transmitting a brief signal to a private server. Inside a steel and glass tower in Arlington, Virginia, a man in a tailored black suit stood as his screen lit up. He studied the alert. Valhalla file accessed. ID match Mercer Ryan. Victor Kane's lips curled into a cold smile. Found you. Back in the bunker, Ryan stood in silence, eyes locked on the flickering screen. They were coming. He turned to Kaiser. Well, buddy, looks like your mission isn't over yet. The air inside the mountain bunker felt heavier now, like it knew it had been breached. A kind of silence hung in the command center, too thick to be peace and too sharp to be quiet. Ryan Mercer sat at the terminal, staring at the screen's reflection, dancing across his tired eyes. Valhalla file accessed. The red alert light continued its slow pulse, a visual metronome of danger. They knew. Whoever had been watching for this file to resurface Apex, their security teams, the bastards Eli tried to expose, they'd seen the ping. They were probably already moving, getting closer. Ryan leaned back and rubbed his temples. The flicker of Eli's recorded face still hovered in his mind, burned into his thoughts like a permanent scar. He hadn't heard Eli's voice since that night. The mission that went wrong. The mission that wasn't supposed to exist. You son of a bitch, Ryan said softly, half grinning as he looked at the terminal. You really built all this. The bunker had everything: sleeping quarters-full armory, a medical station, encrypted communications, even a water filtration system. It wasn't just a hideout. It was a last stand. And now it was his. Ryan stood and stretched, bones popping. Kaiser lay nearby, watching him. The dog's amber eyes tracked his every move with quiet intelligence. That same look Eli used to have when something was about to go sideways. Ryan crossed the room, opened a side cabinet, and found a worn duffel bag packed with MRE's thermal gear and ammo. A note taped to the inside flap, handwritten in black marker. If you're staying, you're fighting. No ghosts allowed. Eli. Ryan chuckled despite himself. You always were dramatic. He opened the next drawer: maps. Real ones. Paper. Marked with Roots grid overlays and color-coded pins. In the center, a hand-drawn circle around the bunker's location. Red arrows pointed inward. They knew he was here. He turned back to the console and brought up the last access log. Eli had recorded everything: their communications, intercepted emails, movement logs from Apex Solutions. The company had been contracting Black Ops mercs under false pretenses, sacrificing American units to cover illegal arms deals. Eli had traced money documents, even whistleblowers who'd vanished. And just before he went off the grid, he'd sent everything to this bunker. But the crown jewel was still locked: the Valhalla file. It required multi-step decryption, including voice print, and something else: a remote uplink from an outside satellite node. A system only someone high inside Apex would have had access to. Eli had been planning to get inside. Steal it. Then he disappeared. Ryan scrolled to the end of the message. There was a short final video, one he hadn't played yet. He hesitated, finger hovering over the screen. Then he tapped play. Eli appeared again, face paler, more drawn than in the first message. His voice cracked as he spoke. If you're seeing this, Ryan, that means I didn't make it back. I always hoped I would. But if not, this is the part you won't like. I didn't tell you everything. Ryan leaned in, heart thudding. I left someone behind. My father, Harlan West. He's not clean in this, but he's not the monster Apex became either. He helped build this place. He knew things were going sideways, but he stayed silent too long. Now he's somewhere in the wind. Maybe you can find him. Maybe he can help you finish this. Or maybe, just maybe, this place is all you'll need. Eli looked down. His hand came into frame, scratching Kaiser's ears. I trained him for more than loyalty, Ryan. He remembers. He listens. He knows this bunker better than anyone but me. Kaiser whined quietly, as if he recognized the voice. Then Eli leaned into the camera. I don't need you to avenge me. I need you to finish the mission. Bring it to light. Make them choke on the truth. That's all that matters now. The screen faded to black. Ryan sat still, the weight of it sinking in. His best friend had died trying to uncover a betrayal that reached into the heart of everything they fought for. And now it was his responsibility. His war. Outside, a gust of wind howled through the hidden ventilation shafts like a distant scream. He stood and turned to Kaiser. You didn't just survive, huh? You waited. The dog's ears perked. Ryan reached for the locker behind the comms panel, entering the code from memory 1207. Eli's birthday. It clicked open. Inside an AR-15, 2 Glocks, 3 spare mags, a combat knife, flares, and a tactical harness. All clean, maintained, ready. Ryan geared up methodically. Body remembered the rhythm. Vest, ammo, weapon check, knife in the boot, Glock at the hip. There was no hesitation now. He moved to the control panel and activated the perimeter cameras. The live feeds flickered on. Snow blurred the edges, but he could see movement in the tree line. Infrared confirmed it, heat signatures. 2, maybe 3 bodies on the approach. Scouting team. He backed away from the console, eyes narrowing. You didn't just call me an Eli, he muttered. You set the board. Kaiser growled low from the corner. Ryan nodded. Looks like the game started. He triggered the external defenses. Hidden floodlights snapped on. Motion alarms clicked in low tones. The system had multiple fallback levels, trapdoors, gas vents, EMP bursts. This wasn't just a shelter. It was a trap. Ryan walked to the reinforced blast door and placed his hand on the control pad. The steel slabs hissed and slid open slowly, revealing the tunnel that led outside into the snowstorm. Cold air surged in. Kaiser moved beside him, tail straight, alert. Ryan looked down at him and said almost to himself, if Eli trained you to remember, then I'm trusting you to lead. Kaiser barked once, sharp and clear, then moved into the tunnel. Ryan followed, rifle-slung boots crunching into the snow. The cold didn't bite this time, not like before, because now he had something burning inside. Not just purpose, but war. The tunnel behind them sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss, swallowing the warm hum of the bunker. Ryan Mercer stepped into the frozen night with Kaiser beside him, the rifle slung tight across his chest, and breath misting like smoke in the dark. The snow had quieted to a steady fall, now no longer a storm, but a curtain, one that blurred the trees and cloaked movement. It was cover, and it was time to use it. He moved low and fast across the ridge trail above the bunker's hidden mouth. The ground beneath his boots was familiar again, like the dust of old patrols, only colder. His pulse settled into a measured rhythm, calm under pressure, forged in fire. Kaiser kept tight to his right side, favoring his injured paw, but focused, alert. Below them the forest yawned wide, and the enemy stirred within it. Ryan had seen them through the camera feed's 2-man recon team, both moving with military precision. Not Apex's corporate rent-a-cops. These were former Tier 1. The way they split their movement, the way they scanned angles, one trailing 5 paces back, they were hunting. But so was he. He reached the edge of a ridge and dropped flat prone in the snow. From here, he could see the first man, dark tactical gear, suppressed weapon face half covered with a thermal mask, moving toward the old logging trail that skirted the east approach of the bunker. Ryan tracked him with the scope. Didn't fire. Waited. The second man flanked to the right, watching the trees, checking the angles. Ryan smiled grimly. They were good, but not better than him. He clicked on his comms scrambler clipped to his vest and switched the frequency band to short-range burst. A moment later, both mercs touched their ears and stopped just a beat. Then confusion, then panic, because now they couldn't talk to each other. Ryan rolled left into the trees and moved down silently, years of recon training slipping back into his body like a second skin. He came up behind the second man, first cut across the snow with surgical precision, and tapped the barrel of his rifle to the man's neck. "Drop it," Ryan whispered. The man froze. To his credit, he didn't flinch or turn, just slowly let his weapon drop into the snow. Ryan stepped closer, stripped the man's sidearm, and drove the butt of his rifle into the side of his head. The merc went down unconscious. 1. The first man now had no comms, no partner, and no idea. Ryan didn't waste time. He dragged the unconscious body behind a deadfall, used paracord from his vest to bind wrists and ankles, and turned back toward the clearing. Kaiser had already taken position at the next bend in the trail, ears sharp. Ryan nodded. They moved again. The remaining scout reached the bunker's first visible feature, a false intake fan disguised as a rock outcropping. He radioed in. Ryan heard the garbled transmission on his own channel. The Apex system was still open, still sloppy. Echo. 1, no sign of movement. Recommend approach vector Bravo. Ryan checked his watch. If Apex followed typical protocols, a full strike team was no more than 24 hours behind a recon ping. Maybe less. This wasn't just cleanup. This was full retrieval. But the bunker was ready. And so was he. Ryan waited until the scout moved 10 paces ahead. Then he triggered the tripline. A soft click. The scout barely had time to turn before the flashbang detonated, flooding the area with light and concussion. He went down hard, disoriented. Ryan was already moving, closing the gap, rifle up. He slammed into the man's chest, disarmed him with one swift motion, and knocked the breath out of him with a knee to the gut. The scout hit the snow, groaning. Ryan crouched beside him, pulled back his mask. Younger than expected, maybe 30. Tattoo along the jawline, private contractor unit, ex-ranger. "You Apex?" Ryan asked. The man didn't answer. Ryan grabbed a snow-covered branch and jammed it into the dirt beside the man's head. "I don't have time for speeches." The scout spat, blood laughed bitterly. "You're the ghost." Ryan didn't blink. Not anymore. He injected the man with a sedative from his field kit. "Tell your boss I'm not done." Then he stood, and for the first time in a long time, Ryan Mercer felt alive. The wind shifted, carrying the faint sound of blades overhead. Not helicopters. Drones. He looked up, eyes scanning the gray sky until he saw it, a small black quadrotor circling just above the tree line. Watching. He raised his rifle and fired. The drone sparked and spiraled, crashing into the snow with a hiss. Kaiser growled low. They were being watched in real time. And somewhere far away, someone had just confirmed Ryan's exact position. Back inside the bunker, Ryan placed both unconscious mercs in the isolation chamber, a small concrete room fitted with electromagnetic dampeners and a reinforced door. Then he returned to the command terminal and began reviewing the surveillance footage. More signatures were popping up. 6 heat signatures 1.5 miles out, moving fast, Heavy gear. Likely XSF. He exhaled. You brought Tier 1 operators good, he said to the screen. I was starting to miss the hunt. He initiated defensive protocol, beta perimeter mines, decoy transmitters, spike pits. The bunker's AI confirmed protocol beta armed. Perimeter defense in effect. Kaiser walked over and placed a paw on a lower panel beneath the terminal. A small hatch clicked open. Ryan crouched, peering inside. Inside was a sealed drive marked Harlan. Eyes only. His breath caught. Eli's father. Ryan had nearly forgotten. He plugged it in. A file opened with a single video entry. Harlan West appeared on screen, gray-bearded, hardened, dressed in civilian clothes, but with the posture of someone who'd worn the uniform long before either of them. I'm not proud of what we built, Harlan began. But Eli believed in you, so I will too. Coordinates flashed on screen. Eastern Oregon, remote. A place called Pine Haven. The screen went black. Ryan sat in the glow of the terminal snow building behind the blast doors. 6 men were coming. And now he had another name, another step, another mission. The drone wreckage lay smoking in the snow, its shattered lens still twitching like a dying eye. Ryan Mercer crouched beside it, fingers running over the casing. It wasn't just surveillance, it was command grade. Black signal encryption. Satellite linked. They hadn't sent this to watch. They'd sent it to target. Kaiser stood at his side, ears low, tail stiff. The shepherd could sense it, something bigger was coming. Ryan glanced back at the tree line. The last of the snow flurries had settled, revealing a field of icy silence around the mountain. But he knew it was a lie. They were in the air now, and soon they'd be on the ground. He hauled the drone carcass inside, dropped it on the bunker table, and pulled open the casing. Wires, GPS, data storage chip still intact. He slid it into the decrypt console Eli had built. The screen flared to life. Accessing Apex Solutions. Strike Package Omega. Ryan's stomach tightened. Omega wasn't recon. It was elimination. A full ghost-clearing team. Black Ops. Off books. No oversight. And it was headed straight for him. He clicked through the mission specs. Primary objective. Secure bunker. Retrieve Valhalla. Secondary objective. Neutralize Mercer. His name. Right there. Not capture. Neutralize. They were coming to kill him and take everything Eli died to protect. He slammed the console shut, breathing through the adrenaline spike. Outside, the storm was returning, low clouds curling around the peaks like smoke from a battlefield long forgotten. Good. Visibility would work in his favor. Kaiser let out a low growl. Ryan turned to him. Time to get clever. He moved fast now, slipping into motion like a machine built for war. Years of dormancy burned away as his old habits kicked in. He pulled a hard case from beneath the armory shelf, one of Eli's backup systems. When he opened it, Kaiser barked once in recognition. Inside a control pad labeled Defense Grid, Manual. A network of antennas, decoy beacons, signal jammers, all tied to the landscape. Ryan smiled. You didn't train him to fetch Eli. You trained him to remember. Kaiser stepped forward, pressing a second pressure pad on the wall. Lights blinked. A hidden panel rotated open. Inside, a wall of surveillance feeds activated overhead terrain maps, old heat trails, fallback routes. Kaiser stared at the screens, then looked back. He was leading Ryan. Not just out of the cold, but through the defense plan. Okay, buddy, Ryan whispered. Let's dance. They activated the beacon network's small pylons hidden beneath snowbanks around the perimeter. These would feed false heat signatures, jam radio bands, create chaos. Next came the terrain. Ryan loaded terrain schematics onto a portable HUD visor and marked key ambush points. Narrow ridgelines exposed ledges' funnel zones. The mountain itself would become the trap. He placed motion-triggered flashbangs in a V pattern along the southern trail, EMP charges in the ice-laced ravine, claymores near the old Firewatch Tower ruins. Kaiser followed, checking scent paths and retracing their tracks to eliminate any signs of movement. By the time the snow was falling thick again, the mountain was a labyrinth of misdirection and death. Then they waited. Ryan knelt inside the bunker's upper observation slit, watching through a thermoscope. At 0400 they came. 6 heat signatures, tight diamond formation, moving like sharks through the forest. Coordinated. Swift. Silent. Ryan tracked the lead. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, gait smooth. Ex-SEAL by the look of it. Behind him 2 carried portable ECM packs. One had a breacher kit. 2 more covered the rear, sweeping with infrared. These weren't scouts. These were killers. Ryan exhaled slowly and clicked his comlink to whisper range. Welcome to the funhouse. He triggered the first beacon. To the team below, it appeared like a running figure, heat signature, erratic movement 40 yards west. They took the bait. The lead man motioned. 2 split off and advanced. Ryan watched them enter the first trap zone. Flashbangs detonated in a deafening burst of light and concussive force. The men dropped disoriented, falling backward into the icy ravine. A second later, the EMP mine went off. Their comms and goggles died instantly. Ryan moved. He and Kaiser flanked hard left, using the wind to mask their steps. The mountain was their ally now, its ridges, its curves, its silence. He reached the breach point and laid a tripline across the slope. Behind it, a cold grenade military-grade freeze burst. Wouldn't kill, but it'd drop body temp fast and disorient any pursuit. Kaiser barked twice. 2 targets approaching from the rear. Ryan waited. The pair stepped into the kill zone just as the beacon behind them projected another false image. They turned, tripwire tripped. The cold burst erupted, sending them spinning in a cloud of mist and pain. Kaiser lunged, knocking one man off balance, keeping low, and snapping at the air near his hand. Just enough to make him flinch. Ryan tackled the second, disarmed his suppressed rifle, and knocked him unconscious with the butt of his weapon. They moved again before the others regrouped, this time toward the upper pass. Ryan could see the lead merc now still moving alone. He wanted the prize. Probably had the extraction key for Valhalla embedded in his HUD rig. His pace was steady, determined. Ryan watched from 20 feet up, eyes narrow. He jumped, dropped from the ledge like a hammer, landed behind the man with brutal efficiency. The 2 fought quick, savage, precise. The man was good, but Ryan had the advantage of terrain and rage. A knife came out. Ryan twisted the man's arm, slammed him into a tree trunk, and stripped the weapon free. Blood sprayed across the snow. The man dropped to his knees. Ryan grabbed his helmet, tore it off. Victor Kane wasn't here. But this guy was close. Who sent you? Ryan demanded. The merc grinned through blood. You already know. Ryan narrowed his eyes. I want names. No need, the man said, choking. We're just the beginning. Ryan tightened his grip, then released him. You're lucky I'm tired of killing. He left the man unconscious and bleeding, dragged him back toward the bunker's edge and tied him with the others. Back inside, he returned to the terminal. The drives were still safe. Valhalla locked. For now. He looked at the encrypted message from the drone data. Victor Kane. Command code active. Kane hadn't just authorized this team. He was tracking them. And Ryan was next on his list. Kaiser limped into the room and dropped something at Ryan's feet, a small patch ripped from one of the Mercs' gear. The insignia was familiar. Kane's private task force. Ryan picked it up, stared at it for a long moment, then turned back to the screen and opened the Harlan West coordinates again. Eli's father was the only other person who might have a key to Valhalla. If Ryan wanted to finish this, he needed to find him. The wind beat against the windshield like a warning, and the old Jeep groaned in protest as it climbed the back roads of Pine Haven. The town was less than a memory on most maps, now tucked into a forgotten stretch of eastern Oregon, surrounded by cold pines and colder people. Ryan Mercer kept one hand on the wheel, the other close to the Glock, holstered against his ribs. Kaiser sat alert in the passenger seat, nose twitching at every passing tree line. They'd left the mountain bunker before first light, following the coordinates Eli's father had embedded in the drive. The strike team had been neutralized for now, but Ryan knew Apex wouldn't stop. Not after a failed Omega operation. This wasn't just cleanup anymore. This was personal. And if anyone still had answers about Valhalla, about why Eli died, it was Harlan West. The Jeep rumbled past the rusted sign. Welcome to Pine Haven, Pop 213. Most of the buildings looked abandoned. Wood warped, windows fogged. It wasn't a town, it was a scar. The kind of place people went to vanish or rot. Ryan pulled into a gas station that hadn't seen business since before cell towers. An old man sat on the porch, bundled in flannel, staring at nothing. He didn't flinch as Ryan killed the engine. Looking for Harlan West, Ryan said as he approached. The old man spit into a rusted coffee can. You the FBI, number CIA? Ryan shook his head. Then you're already asking too much. I'm not here to drag him in, Ryan said, lowering his voice. I'm here because his son's dead, and I need to know why. The old man studied him for a long moment. Ain't no why in Pine Haven, just things we stopped talking about. Kaiser growled low. Ryan met the old man's eyes and dropped a name. Eli. That did it. The man's face tightened. He leaned back slowly. Cabin 2 miles north, through the tree line. Red roof, he don't talk to strangers. I'm not a stranger, Ryan said. He got back in the Jeep and followed the gravel road that led past skeletal trees and downed fences. The forest thickened the path, narrowing until even daylight seemed reluctant to come through. After 10 minutes, he spotted the cabin. Red roof. Satellite dish cracked in half. Smoke from a chimney curling into the gray sky. Ryan parked 100 yards out and approached on foot. Kaiser padded ahead, ears sharp. No birds, no wind, just the creak of the trees. He stepped onto the porch, then heard the click. Step back. Hands up, came the voice, gravel and steel. It came from behind. Ryan froze, then slowly raised his hands. I'm not here to fight. Then you're walking awful loud for a ghost, the voice said. Ryan turned his head slightly. Name's Mercer. Ryan Mercer. Eli sent me. Silence. Then a pause. A long one. A man stepped into view. 70, maybe older. Big frame, weathered face, sharp eyes like shattered ice. He held a shotgun like it was an extension of his arm. He looked at Ryan for a long, heavy moment. Then he lowered the barrel. Well, hell, Harlan West muttered. Guess the past finally caught up. Inside the cabin smelled like pine smoke and bourbon. Harlan poured 2 fingers of something dark into a chipped glass and slid it across the table. Ryan didn't drink it. You knew I'd come, Ryan asked. I figured someone would, but I hoped it'd be someone I hated more. Ryan nodded. Eli left a message. Said you helped build the bunker. I built more than that, Harlan said. I helped write the specs for Valhalla. Ryan sat back. You knew what they were doing, I knew what they were planning. Harlan said, Didn't know they'd go that far. You stayed silent. I was trying to keep my son alive. Ryan didn't respond. Let the silence do the accusing. Harlan stared into his glass. Apex was supposed to be a shadow firewall. Clean black data. Burn off rogue cells before they spread. But it mutated. Started twisting intel. Setting up operations for failure so they could collect payouts on the cover-ups. Your unit, Eli's, was one of them. I know, Ryan said, his voice quiet. He died because of it. Harlan looked away. I told him not to chase it. Told him it was bigger than him. He chased it anyway. He always did, Harlan whispered. Like his mother. Ryan leaned forward. I need the rest of the Valhalla key. I have the first half. He left it for me in the bunker. Harlan didn't move. You don't want what's on that drive, son. I need it. Harlan studied him, then stood, walked to the fireplace and pulled a small lockbox from behind a stack of firewood. He opened it slowly, revealing a single flash drive and a brass locket. He wanted you to have both, Harlan said. Ryan took them. The locket was old. Inside a photo of Eli as a boy, and etched into the back truth costs. Pay anyway. He used to say that, Harlan muttered. Drove me crazy. Ryan pocketed the drive. They sent a kill team after me. Apex won't stop. They're planning something bigger, something called Project Halcyon. Does that name mean anything? Harlan stiffened. It means they're moving faster than I thought. What is it? Not here, Harlan said. We talk in town. Safer among noise. Too many ears in the trees. Before Ryan could ask what he meant, Kaiser growled. Low. Immediate. He was already moving to the door. Ryan was up in a second hand on his pistol. Then gunfire. It cracked the silence like thunder. Bullets shredded the windows. Glass exploded inward. Down Harlan shouted, diving behind the couch. Ryan rolled to the door, returned fire into the tree line. 3 masked figures in tactical gear emerged from the fog. No insignias, just black. Kaiser lunged at the first one, teeth flashing. Ryan followed, using the chaos to flank. He dropped one with a clean shot to the thigh. Another ducked behind the jeep, but Harlan, of all people, stepped onto the porch and let off a blast from his shotgun that sent the man flying. The third ran. Ryan sprinted after him, boots pounding frozen ground. He caught up halfway down the hill, tackled the guy into a tree. They struggled, fists, elbows, breath forming clouds in the air. Ryan slammed him into the trunk, tore the mask off. A kid, barely 20, terrified. Who sent you west? The kid gasped. Ryan blinked. Harlan, no, the other one. Victor West. Harlan's brother. Ryan stepped back, stunned. That's not possible. He's running it now, the kid gasped. Project Halcyon. Valhalla's just the start. Ryan knocked him out cold. When he returned to the cabin, Harlan was sitting on the porch again, blood on his hands, eyes hollow. Victor's alive, Ryan said. He's running Apex. Harlan looked like he'd been punched. No. He died in '92. Burned in an op gone sideways. Apparently not. Harlan's voice dropped cracked like ice. Then you don't just have to expose Apex. Ryan nodded slowly. I have to stop my uncle. The cabin was still smoldering when Ryan and Harlan buried the last body out back. The snow had covered most of the blood, but not the memory, not the truth. Victor West, Harlan's brother, Eli's uncle, alive and worse, pulling strings behind Apex and the Black Project, known as Halcyon. They stood in silence for a moment, neither man speaking, until Harlan finally broke it with a voice that sounded like gravel being ground under boot. He was supposed to be dead. Ryan looked at him. So was Eli. But this family's full of surprises. Harlan didn't flinch. He faked his death after Bolivia. That op was a mess. Victor walked in with fire in his eyes and came out with none. I figured whatever was left of him burned with the compound. Ryan crossed his arms. Or maybe he just used that fire to build something darker. Inside the wreckage of the cabin, Ryan reassembled the Intel drives with both keys, Eli's and now Harlan's. The two pieces merged with a chime decrypting the main folder marked Valhalla Master. Lines of code unfurled. File trees expanded. Ryan scrolled through everything Eli had risked and lost his life for. The truth wasn't just about battlefield betrayals. It was a blueprint. Project Halcyon Phase 1. Inception. Utilize AI-managed surveillance to influence geopolitical shifts. Deploy embedded Apex assets into federal and private agencies. Manufacture destabilizing intel leaks to manipulate global markets. Develop fail-safe infrastructure for continuity of power under synthetic governance. It wasn't just espionage. It was architecture. The creation of a shadow government powered by artificial intelligence and executed through Apex's private military shell. And the worst part, Phase 2, was already marked as in progress. Ryan leaned back from the console, exhaling hard. Kaiser whined nearby, sensing the weight in the room. This isn't just a leak, Ryan muttered. This is a war plan. Harlan nodded slowly. Halcyon wasn't supposed to go live. Not until someone like Victor got desperate or drunk on power. Ryan flipped open another folder labeled Personnel, Compromised. Dozens of names, politicians, CEOs, tech leaders, journalists, all marked with status flags, some as active assets, others as terminated liabilities. The machine was already moving. Eli wasn't just trying to blow a whistle, Ryan said. He was trying to unplug the mainframe, and they killed him before he could. Ryan's jaw clenched, his eyes locked on a third folder, Red List. Operators for neutralization. Second name on the list. Mercer Ryan. Third name, West Harlan. They both stared at it. They know I'm with you, Ryan said. No. They knew before you got here. The words hung in the air like frost. Ryan stood and grabbed his gear. We can't stay here. Harlan didn't argue. He opened a small panel in the wall Ryan hadn't noticed before. Inside a narrow rifle case and a canvas bag of old documents, maps, photos, printouts with redacted sections. One was a satellite image of a desert facility in Nevada. No name, no grid. But one phrase stood out at the top, Halcyon command node, Site A. You know where this is, Ryan asked. I helped draw the blueprints, Harlan said. But we're not walking into that place without a plan. Ryan thought for a second, then grabbed a road map from the table, flattening it out. His finger tapped a spot on the Oregon border. We're not going straight in. Not yet. Then where Denver? Harlan raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I need my crew. Harlan gave a faint nod. You trust anyone that much? Ryan didn't hesitate. I trust them with war. They packed quickly gear, intel drives, backup batteries, and weapons. Ryan made sure to grab the old locket Eli had left him. He didn't say why. Before they left, Harlan took one last look at the scorched cabin. "Everything I built," he said, voice hollow, "and the only thing left worth saving burned in it." Ryan looked at him. "Then let's go build something that'll burn them instead." They hit the road in Harlan's battered Chevy tires, crunching snow, engine coughing, but holding steady. Ryan drove. Kaiser curled in the back seat, eyes alert, but exhausted. As they passed the Pine Haven sign on their way out, Ryan muttered, "When ghosts start calling in favors, something's about to break." The trip south was quiet. Long stretches of icy road, abandoned gas stations, broken towns frozen in time. Every so often, a black SUV or unmarked sedan would pass in the opposite direction, and Ryan's fingers would twitch toward his sidearm. Apex could be anywhere now, and everyone was suspect. They stopped for gas at a rural junction just north of Boise. Harlan stayed in the truck while Ryan went in. The clerk didn't ask questions. He barely looked up. But as Ryan walked out, he caught a flicker in the mirror above the chips rack, two figures in the back aisle. One talking into a sleeve, the other adjusting something under his coat. Ryan didn't break stride. He opened the door, tossed the change on the dash, and whispered, "Eyes behind me, too." Harlan didn't move. How close? Close enough. They drove. 5 miles out, headlights appeared behind them. Then another set. Ryan didn't need confirmation. "They're tailing us." "Turn off here," Harlan said. Logging road to an old fire trail. The Chevy fishtailed on the snow-dusted turn, grinding through brush and frozen mud. The headlights followed. 2 cars. Coordinated. Harlan reached under the seat, pulled out a shortwave radio with a battered mic. "I'm calling in a friend." Ryan gave him a quick glance. "You still have friends, one." He keyed the mic. "This is Dust Frame 9 requesting a crow call on Path Echo. Authorization Scorched Crown." A pause. Then a crackled reply. Echo acknowledged. Eyes inbound. Ryan raised an eyebrow. What the hell was that insurance? Harlan said. "We'll meet him at the ranger station south of Twin Falls." 30 minutes later, they reached the small, crumbling station. It looked abandoned. But the moment they pulled in, a massive military green truck rumbled up from the side trail, headlights off, engine quiet. A man stepped out, tall, lean, with a scar over his left eye and a shotgun strapped across his back. He looked at Ryan, then at Harlan. "Guess I owe you another war," he said. Ryan blinked. "Who the hell is this?" Harlan grinned faintly. "This," he said, "is Cole Rayner. My insurance policy." Cole offered a hand-firm grip. "You've stirred the hive, Mercer. Halcyon's not just a black file. It's a kill switch. And you're standing on the wire." Ryan didn't smile. He just asked, "Then how do we cut it?" Snow hammered the ranger station like the sky wanted to erase it. Inside, Ryan Mercer crouched over the table, his breath clouding in the cold eyes, locked on the decrypted files spilling across Cole Rayner's ancient terminal. Lines of code dossiers, phase charts. This wasn't intel. It was a goddamn war map. Cole leaned in beside him, mouth flat, eyes narrowed. "This isn't surveillance. It's infrastructure." Ryan's voice was low but sharp. "It's control." Behind them, Harlan West stood silent, arms folded, jaw clenched as he stared at what his brother had helped build. Project Halcyon wasn't just theory anymore. It was moving, executing, slithering its way through the bones of government finance and media like a virus with perfect timing. Apex Solutions had weaponized the world's systems, and Victor West held the kill switch. Phase 2's already live, Ryan said. This isn't about stopping a leak. It's about cutting off the water supply. Cole clicked into a restricted folder and whistled through his teeth. Encrypted deep state profiles. Predicted regime change models, asset termination schedules. Christ, Ryan. This is a blueprint for synthetic empire. Ryan's hands curled into fists. We need to hit the node before Victor deploys full lockdown. We drop this system from inside, make it impossible for him to reboot. Harlan nodded slowly. There's one place he'll be. One place where his biometric signature can be accessed without tripping Apex's defenses. Cole raised a brow. Let me guess, the Black Dome Gala, Ryan looked up. What is it, annual Apex fundraiser, Harlan said. High society meets deep state. Tech giants, politicians, military brass. All in one place. Victor makes a speech every year. This year it's in Denver. 2 nights from now. Cole smirked. A honeypot wrapped in a death trap. Perfect. Ryan stared at the flashing red cursor on the screen. Then that's where we finish this. They spent the next 36 hours off-grid planning like war criminals. Cole printed blueprints of the Denver Civic Center marked access tunnels, exit points, and choke zones. Harlan pulled old codes, fallback aliases, and a secure uplink node in Boulder they could use for a broadcast. If they could breach Apex's encrypted core and expose Project Halcyon live in front of its creator, they could bring it all down. Ryan barely slept. He moved like a man on borrowed time, checking gear, memorizing floor plans, burning through SAT drone rotations. Kaiser never left his side eyes, following every movement like a shadow with teeth. At dawn, Ryan stepped outside into the snow-blasted light, flipped open Eli's locket, and stared at the etched words inside truth costs. Pay anyway. He closed his eyes and whispered, I will. They left the mountains behind, driving south through hidden routes and blind switchbacks, until the lights of Denver rose like a promise they never trusted. The city buzzed with winter cheer, but beneath it Ryan felt the tension. Streets blocked, surveillance vans posing as telecom trucks, Apex logos etched into security checkpoints no one questioned. Power hiding in plain sight. Cole led them to a safe house 4 blocks from the gala venue. Brick-walled, windowless, set up like a ghost nest. Inside, Ryan laid out the final plan with precision. No comms once we breach, he said. Jammers only give us 7 minutes before backup protocols activate. Cole, your access support. Harlan runs Overwatch. I go for Victor. Cole grinned. Not much margin for error. There isn't supposed to be. They geared up in silence. Ryan pulled on his formal attire-tailored suit with a hidden ballistic lining, forged Apex ID in the name of David Walker. Harlan handed him a data spike containing the full Valhalla dump pre-rigged for live broadcast if they could hit the uplink. What happens if we don't make it to the feed? Cole asked. Ryan didn't hesitate. Then we bury it. We take the node offline permanently. Cole nodded. Hard exit. Harder consequences, Harlan muttered. This system runs deep, boys. You don't just unplug it. You choke it slowly or bleed out trying. Ryan looked at them both. No, we kill it fast. We make noise so loud, the silence doesn't stand a chance. That sentence cut through the room like a spark in gasoline. If we don't make noise, the silence wins. Cole stared at him. That's the play then, that's the only play. The next night arrived fast. Ryan stood at the edge of the gala entrance, face unreadable behind a black tie and dead eyes. Music spilled from the grand rotunda, laughter echoing under crystal chandeliers. Apex's elite glided across marble floors with champagne flutes and carefully curated smiles. He walked in. ID scanned. Clearance green. No questions asked. Inside, he clocked exits, vents, and cameras with a soldier's eye. Cole moved through the crowd dressed as a maintenance tech, pushing a mop bucket that was actually a comm disruptor rig. Harlan's voice crackled faintly through the earpiece. Victor just landed. West balcony entrance. 10 minutes until his speech. Ryan moved. He passed senators and CEOs, shook hands with men who'd sold nations for profit. He slipped through the side corridor, found the biometric relay station disguised as a security console, and embedded the spike. The terminal flashed, signal acquired, biometric sync pending. Then Victor West entered, tall, imposing, silver hair slicked back. His voice boomed as he greeted his cult of influence, calling for a new future of controlled prosperity. Ryan stared at him from across the room. The man who'd erased his team used Eli, corrupted Harlan's work, and was now preparing to lock the world into a digital chokehold. Victor's biometric scan ran the moment he stepped near the console. Synced. Access key matched. Ryan hit the uplink trigger. Valhalla opened. Every file, every kill order, every dirty name, every sabotaged mission. They had 60 seconds of clean transmission. Broadcast is live, Harlan said. Then alarms screamed. Red lights flared across the rotunda. Security turned. Victor's eyes narrowed. He saw Ryan. The war just went public. Red sirens pulsed through the rotunda, painting the marble floor with flashes of warning. The music died in a dissonant screech. Guests froze mid-sip, mid-laugh, their expressions flickering from confusion to fear. Security teams in black suits pushed through the crowd, earpieces, live weapons already drawn but hidden beneath lapels. Ryan Mercer stood at the edge of the chaos, eyes locked on Victor West across the ballroom. For a second, just a second, time slowed. Victor's face was calm, calculated. A man who'd spent decades engineering global shadows didn't flinch when one flickered back. His eyes met Ryan's with a quiet recognition. And then everything exploded. "Go loud," Harlan's voice barked through the comms. Ryan reached into his blazer, yanked the emergency jammer trigger, and the room's signal grid collapsed. Apex's security scrambled as all internal comms died in a flash of static. Cole Rayner was already moving. From his janitor cart, he pulled out a compact flashbang, rolled it toward the biometric console, and ducked behind a marble pillar. The detonation sent shock waves of confusion through the ballroom. Screams, shouts, gunfire. Ryan sprinted, shoulder-checking a security agent who was reaching for his weapon. He dropped the man with a clean elbow to the jaw and dove behind a serving table. 2 more guards converged on his position, but Cole intercepted one with a brutal takedown, slamming him against a mirrored column. "Uplinks still live," Harlan shouted. "You've got 30 seconds of clean feed left. Get the file out." Ryan slid to the console, fingers flying. The Valhalla folder was still open. The data was streaming, bleeding into mirrored nodes across the deep web. Then static. A firewall snapped up. "Feed cut." "Damn it," Ryan hissed. "They blocked the mirror port." "You need to physically reroute the uplink," Harlan said. "Core server is in the sub-basement level B3. Access tunnel under the main stairwell." Cole appeared beside him, bleeding from a cut over his eyebrow. "We're running out of time." Ryan looked toward the west balcony. Victor was gone. "New plan," Ryan said. "You get to the server and finish the broadcast." "And you?" Cole asked. "I'm going after Victor." Cole hesitated only a beat before nodding. "Watch your back." Ryan turned and vanished into the smoke and screaming, ducking through the emergency exit as alarms continued to wail through the building. Downstairs, the service corridors were dim and pulsing with red emergency lights. Ryan ran past locked doors, flickering panels, and signs pointing toward executive parking. Every step closer to Victor felt like descending into the bones of something monstrous. He found the elevator open, still warm from use. He knew where it led. Harlan's voice came through. "Mercer." "You copy, tracking Victor," Ryan said. "He's running." "Not running," Harlan corrected. "He's falling back." "To where?" "There's a private helipad on the roof, but Victor has another option. Deep exit tunnel beneath the venue. Leads directly to an Apex substation." Ryan didn't slow. "Can you track him?" "Negative. No cams down there." Ryan stepped into the elevator, hit the lowest level, and drew his pistol. His other hand gripped the locket in his pocket. Eli's last message burned in his mind. He thinks he's untouchable. Prove him wrong. The elevator dinged. Doors slid open. Darkness. He stepped out into concrete silence, broken only by the hum of air vents and the distant click of echoing footsteps. The place felt abandoned, but the scent of power clung to the walls, expensive cologne and old lies. Then footsteps, closer now, deliberate. Ryan moved quietly, hugging the wall, pistol raised. He turned a corner and found him. Victor West stood at the end of the corridor, facing a reinforced door. He turned slowly, like he'd been expecting this. "Ryan Mercer," he said, voice calm, even amused. "The ghost with a badge and a cause." "Your cause ends tonight," Ryan said. Victor smiled. "You think killing me stops this Halcyon isn't a person. It's a principle. Kill me and the machine lives. You built the machine. That makes you the fuse." Victor didn't reach for a weapon. He just took a step forward, hands raised slightly. "I watched your file. Eli trusted you. That was his mistake. You murdered him." Victor's jaw tightened. "I silenced a threat. That threat is about to burn your empire to the ground." Victor tilted his head. "Then shoot me. But ask yourself, do you want justice or vengeance?" Ryan's grip tightened. Then a gunshot. But not from Ryan. The shot came from the shadows behind Victor. The round slammed into Victor's shoulder, spinning him sideways with a grunt. Ryan dove behind a crate as another figure emerged from the tunnel. Harlan, shotgun in hand. "You don't get to choose how this ends," Victor Harlan said coldly. "Not after Bolivia, not after Eli." Victor tried to stand, blood running from his arm. "You're too late," he spat. "Halcyon's already moving. You can't stop evolution." Ryan stepped forward, now lowering his weapon. "Then we unplug the species." He looked at Harlan. Harlan tossed him a backup uplink drive. "Cole got the server online. We can finish the upload from here." Ryan plugged it into the backup node at the hallway terminal. The files resumed. Unfiltered. Live. Names, numbers, voice recordings. Victor lunged in desperation toward the terminal. Ryan didn't hesitate. He dropped him with a single shot to the knee. Victor collapsed, screaming. The data upload hit 100%. Confirmed. Harlan stepped beside Ryan as sirens in the distance shifted pitch police feds media. Too late to contain it. "Guess we made noise," Harlan said. Ryan looked down at Victor, bleeding and broken on the floor, loud enough to wake the dead. Rain fell like needles on the roof of the federal safe house outside Boulder. Inside, the air was heavy with static and tension. Ryan sat at the edge of a cot, blood-stained shirt peeled halfway down his shoulder, wrapped in gauze. Across from him, Harlan leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching the TV flicker in the corner. The screen showed chaos news anchors trying to make sense of the data flood that had rocked the world 12 hours ago. Headlines scrolled across the bottom of the screen like silent screams: global conspiracy, exposed Apex files, leak, confirmed authentic Project Halcyon, tied to assassinations, market collapses, AI manipulated elections. Victor West in custody, Apex. Executives under federal investigation, but behind the noise, Ryan saw something else. Panic. The kind that rattles walls built on secrets. The broadcast had worked. For the first time, the truth was louder than the lie. But victory tasted hollow. Cole entered the room, water dripping from his coat. They're locking down every Apex facility west of the Rockies. DOJ, NSA, even private watchdogs. They're all tripping over themselves to act like they weren't complicit. And Victor Ryan asked without looking away from the screen. Under round-the-clock watch in a black site somewhere in Utah. He'll be breathing through a straw for a while thanks to your kneecap lesson. Ryan didn't smile. He'll talk eventually. He already is, Cole said. But not to us, lawyers, lobbyists. He's buying time. Harlan pushed off the wall. He's buying silence. Again. The room fell quiet for a moment. Then Ryan spoke, his voice low. We didn't burn the machine. We just cracked it open. Cole pulled a folded envelope from his jacket. Then maybe it's time we finish the job. He handed it to Ryan. Inside were satellite images, floor plans, and a hand-drawn map. One facility buried in the Nevada desert marked with one word: Helix. This wasn't on the original files, Cole said. But after the upload went live, a source reached out. Said if we really want to kill Halcyon, this is where it's hiding now. Off-grid backup node, Harlan muttered, reading over Ryan's shoulder. Even if Victor's empire burns, Halcyon's code survives. It can still rebuild. Ryan looked up. Unless we pull the plug at the source. Cole tapped the map. This isn't just software. It's hardwired AI, quantum-based, self-learning, which means it's not just code anymore, it's evolving. And if it becomes autonomous, Harlan began. We lose the war, Ryan finished. The three men exchanged a look. They had sparked a revolution. But revolutions didn't end with headlines. They ended in fire. They moved fast. Under aliases, they crossed state lines in blackout convoys. Cole activated old contacts from his special ops past, pulling intel clearance codes and long-buried blueprints from DARPA archives. Harlan reprogrammed jammers and EMP bursts while Kaiser silently rode shotgun eyes, always watching. They reached the edge of the Nevada basin under cover of darkness. Miles of nothing. No signs. No fences. Just sand and silence. Until they reached it. A lone structure, steel and concrete, half buried in the desert. To the untrained eye, it looked like a weather station. But beneath it, Ryan could feel the hum. Like a living thing breathing underground. This is it, Cole said, tightening his vest. The Helix core. Harlan checked the uplink signal. No external feeds, no internet, no radio. This place is a fortress. Ryan scanned the horizon. Then we bring our own war. They breached the outer perimeter under moonlight, disabling the initial security quietly. But inside, the story changed. Autonomous defense systems, sensor-triggered drones, retina-locked doors, and a voice. Synthetic, calm, female. Welcome, Ryan Mercer. Ryan froze. How the hell? It's Halcyon, Harlan said. It recognizes you. You're part of its threat profile now. Then it knows what I came to do. The lights shifted as the AI spoke again. You were a soldier. You understand survival. I offer continuity, efficiency, a future without chaos. Cole fired a shot into the nearest camera. Save your sermon. They pushed deeper, past biometric gates, through data vaults filled with servers cooled by humming turbines. The facility was endless, a cathedral to control. Finally, they reached the core. A massive cylindrical chamber glowing faint blue from the containment rings around a floating server pod. Pulsing, breathing. The brain, Harlan whispered. Ryan stepped forward. The voice returned. I can adapt. You cannot. I will outlast nations, ideologies, rebellions. Even you. Ryan reached into his pack and pulled out the override drive, one last gift from Eli. A kill switch laced with a recursive virus designed to fracture Halcyon's neural network from within. No, Ryan said. You're not a god. You're a mirror, built by broken men who thought perfection meant obedience. He stepped to the interface and slid the drive into the core terminal. Halcyon's voice stuttered, fractured. This will create global instability. Better unstable than enslaved, Ryan snapped. The lights dimmed. Turbines groaned. The pod began to flicker as if it were dying slowly. Harlan triggered the EMP charge. We've got 90 seconds before the whole grid cooks. Suddenly, defense systems reactivated. Drones emerged from the ceiling. Cole opened fire. Go, go, go! They sprinted back through the corridors, bullets ricocheting around them, alarms blaring. Ryan shoved the last door open as heat rippled through the hallway. The EMP exploded behind them with a low, pulsing boom that echoed like the death of something ancient. They collapsed outside into the desert sand, coughing, bleeding, but alive. Behind them, the helix structure flickered, then went dark. Halcyon was dead. Truly dead. And for the first time in years, Ryan felt a stillness in his chest. Not peace, but the absence of war. They lay in silence for a while, watching the stars. Harlan finally said, "What now?" Ryan stared up at the sky. "Now, we start fixing what we didn't know was broken." Ash and static still clung to the air, even hours after the Helix facility had gone dark. The desert was quiet again, as if the ground itself was exhaling for the first time in decades. Ryan sat on the edge of the ridge overlooking the collapsed entry point, the morning sun bleeding across the sand in streaks of gold and rust. Kaiser lay beside him, head on his paws, eyes scanning the horizon. Behind them, Cole patched up a nasty graze across his ribs, while Harlan wired the last of the hard drives into a mobile data rig, fingers twitching from fatigue and adrenaline. Their truck sat nearby, caked in dust and heat-baked metal, the kind of truck that looked like it had survived more than one war. Fitting. So Cole muttered, wiping blood from his side, "We just killed God." Now what Harlan didn't look up. We didn't kill God. We killed a tool built by cowards pretending to be gods. Ryan finally stood, brushing sand from his jacket. Either way, we broke the chain. But breaking the chain wasn't the same as repairing the damage it caused. All over the world, the collapse of Halcyon's hidden systems had begun. Markets shivered under sudden transparency. Intelligence agencies scrambled to understand what operations had been puppeteered. Puppet governments fell in a matter of hours. Whistleblowers came out of hiding. Files emerged, some tied to long-forgotten black sites, others to atrocities blamed on the innocent. It was raw, unfiltered, chaos. It was also the first step toward healing. Ryan knew the cost. The quote Harlan had written on the safe house wall before they left still echoed in his mind. You can't heal what you keep hiding. The war was never going to be won by one explosion. But this was a reckoning. They drove for hours before stopping in a quiet valley town tucked into northern Colorado. No drones overhead, no Apex logos, just long roads, old diners, and silence. They checked into a cabin just off a dirt path. No power grid, no cameras, just the sound of wind through pine. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He sat at the table, Eli's locket in one hand, the original Valhalla drive in the other. It was encrypted again, locked by a phrase only one person knew. He whispered it aloud. "What did you give your life for, Eli?" Suddenly, the drive pinged. Unlocked. A message popped up, a video file labeled Mercer, for when it's done. Ryan hit play. Eli appeared younger, exhausted, but alive in the frame. Sitting in the bunker, eyes burning with purpose. "If you're watching this," Eli began, "you did it. Or you're dead, and someone's trying to figure out why I trusted you." He gave a tired smile. "I knew the moment I cracked that Apex algorithm that it wasn't just a system. It was a sickness. And like any sickness, the first step to healing is truth. You always said we had to fight smart. I think you were wrong. We had to fight honest." Eli leaned forward. "Halcyon isn't the last of it. There are more. Different names, different faces, but the same disease. You can't fight them all, but you can light a path for the ones who come after." He reached forward, touched the screen as if touching Ryan. "I hope I see you again. Somewhere better." The video ended. Ryan sat there for a long time. The next morning, they met with their first contact, a journalist named Lyle Vega, who had been reporting on government secrecy since the Snowden leaks. He took one look at the drive Harlan handed him and went pale. This is everything," he whispered. "Some of these names are still in power." "And they won't be for long," Harlan said. "You'll need protection," Ryan added. "They'll come for you the second you publish." "I've got backup nodes ready," Lyle said. "This won't be a headline. It'll be a tidal wave." They watched him drive off, cradling the hard drive like it was a grenade wrapped in truth. Later that afternoon, Ryan stood alone at the edge of a lake near the cabin. Snow touched the edges of the water. He could see the reflection of the mountains, sharp and unmoved by everything they'd just set in motion. Cole walked up beside him holding 2 beers. "Reckon this is what winning feels like?" Cole asked. Ryan took one, nodded. "No, this is what surviving feels like." Cole looked out across the lake. "People are going to call us heroes." Ryan shook his head. "Then they didn't see what we had to become to win." Cole took a sip. "You ever think we'll go back to normal?" Ryan didn't answer for a long time. "Then, there's no normal anymore. Just better. Or worse." Harlan joined them as the sun dipped below the peaks. "They're already trying to spin it," he said. "Apex stock tanked. Dozens of arrests. But some networks are calling it cyber terrorism." Ryan laughed bitterly. "Of course they are." Kaiser barked once, low and steady, his head tilted toward the road. A black sedan was pulling up. Ryan reached for his sidearm. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. Tall, no-nonsense, wearing civilian clothes, but carrying herself like someone who'd commanded rooms with red buttons on the walls. "Ryan Mercer," she called. "Depends who's asking." She approached slowly. "My name is Director Alana Pierce. I work for a coalition task force investigating cyber governance warfare. What you and your team did at Helix wasn't just historic, it changed the entire landscape." Ryan didn't relax. "And we need people like you. People who've seen the system from inside out. There's a bigger storm coming. Harlan frowned. Bigger than Halcyon. Pierce nodded. Halcyon was the proof of concept. The others are global. Ryan exhaled. What's the play? She handed him a dossier. This time you don't fight alone. Ryan looked at Cole, then Harlan, then down at Kaiser. They'd lit the fire. Now it was time to carry it. He looked back at Pierce. We're not soldiers anymore, he said. We're architects of what comes next. The plane sliced through a sky of pale gold and deep indigo, leaving behind the last tendrils of storm clouds. From 30,000 feet, the world below looked peaceful. Mountains rolled like quiet giants under a cotton veil of mist, and cities blinked gently in the distance, lights still glowing despite everything. Ryan Mercer sat in the last row, eyes closed, head resting against the cool window. He hadn't slept, not really. Not since Helix. Not since the truth cracked the world open. But this was different. This was the kind of stillness that came after a long storm. Not silence, but calm. Across the aisle, Harlan thumbed through a leather-bound notebook, pages filled with sketches and system flow diagrams, blueprints for a different future. Cole sat up front reading something off his tablet, half laughing at a message that popped up. Probably from Vega. His first story had gone nuclear. 2 more were scheduled to drop this week. And still they barely scratched the surface. Kaiser slept at Ryan's feet, one paw twitching in some dream where he was still hunting ghosts in the snow. Ryan's hand rested absently on the dog's back, grounding himself in the warmth. The past month had been a blur of movement, safe houses, debriefs, encrypted interviews, clandestine meetings with people who used to only exist in footnotes. Every move they made shifted something, exposed. Someone tore down another pillar of the old world. And for the first time in years, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they were no longer alone in the fight. The plane began its descent. Their destination wasn't a battlefield this time. It was a summit. A global consortium had called for a closed-door meeting in Reykjavik. Not just politicians, technologists, whistleblowers, journalists, activists, survivors, people who had seen the machine and said enough. Ryan wasn't attending as a soldier. He was attending as a witness. When they landed, the cold was immediate and clean. Reykjavik's airport buzzed with quiet efficiency. No press, no crowds, just faces that had seen too much trying to shape something better from what remained. Ryan and his team were escorted through the back entrance by a liaison from the Nordic Intelligence Union. Inside, the summit hall felt more like a cathedral than a conference room. Stone walls, long wood tables, no cameras, no live streams, just words and truth. Each delegate was given 7 minutes to speak. Ryan went last. He stepped up to the central podium, unsure of what he'd even say. There was no speech prepared, no notes, just memory, and the faces of the people he had lost. He looked around the room, took a breath, and let it come. I'm not here as a hero, he said. I'm here because I was complicit. For years I followed orders that led nowhere, protected systems I didn't understand, carried out missions for people who saw the world as a ledger, columns of and threat. He paused. I believed in duty, in discipline, in silence. I thought that was strength. I was wrong. Somewhere near the back, someone nodded slowly. I lost people I cared about because I chose to keep my head down instead of my heart open. Eli West was one of those people. He wasn't just a whistleblower. He was a compass. And he pointed me back to something I'd forgotten: honesty matters more than survival. Ryan's voice cracked, but he didn't stop. Project Halcyon wasn't just a system. It was a symbol of how far we'd gone off course. When power exists without conscience, it breeds monsters. Not always in uniforms, sometimes in suits, sometimes in code. He looked down at his hands. I've spent the last year fighting to tear that system apart. But we didn't destroy Halcyon just to celebrate. We did it so no one would ever have to make that choice again between truth and safety, between silence and soul. He stepped back from the mic. There's no clean end to this story, but there's a beginning. Right here, right now. Not with bullets, but with rebuilding, reconnecting, and remembering what it means to be human. Silence, then slowly applause. Not the kind that fills stadiums, but the kind that carries weight. After the summit, they didn't fly back to another operation. There was no next mission. Not yet. Instead, Ryan went north. He hiked through the snow with Kaiser up into the fjords, where the sky opened wide and the stars didn't compete with noise. He found an old shack abandoned, half-collapsed, and started fixing it up, piece by piece, board by board. Cole visited sometimes, bringing food trading stories. Harlan stayed longer, built a shortwave tower that could tap into free bands and pass signals to small resistance pockets in still dark corners of the world. Not all of Halcyon's roots were gone, but people were waking up, fighting back. And one night, as the fire cracked inside the rebuilt cabin, Ryan sat with a notebook and wrote something he hadn't said out loud. The future is made by those who refuse to forget the cost of silence. Kaiser lay beside him, breathing deep. Outside, the wind howled. But it wasn't the same wind he'd once feared. It was clean now, honest. Ryan closed the notebook and stepped out into the night, looking up. Above him, the stars shined like quiet truths, uncontrolled, unmonitored, burning freely. He let the cold bite his skin and smiled. Not because the war was over, but because this time the world was watching, and this time it would remember.